No, this isn't right. Mama, are you okay? Give me a moment, sweetheart. No, no, this can't be right. $4,860. The Caribbean? On my grocery account? Oh my God, I can't wait for the cruise. No. Thank you again so much for watching the kids next week. You used my card? Mom, do you have any idea how?
I was standing in my daughter Vanessa's kitchen, cutting strawberries for my grandchildren, when I saw the charge. $4,860. A Caribbean cruise line. I checked the last four digits twice. It was the same card Vanessa had always called my grocery card. Before I could process it, she walked in smiling. Thanks again for keeping Alyssa and Ethan next week, Mom. Marcus and I really need this vacation. I looked at her, then at the statement. She had used my money to fund her cruise and still expected 8 days of free childcare. I didn't yell, I didn't cancel anything. I just looked at the refrigerator and thought, maybe it's time Grandma posted her rates. 6 months before I found that cruise charge, I would have laughed if anyone had suggested Vanessa might take advantage of me financially. Not because I thought my daughter was perfect. I had raised her. I knew better than anyone that Vanessa could be stubborn, impulsive, and a little too concerned with what other people thought. But I also believed there were lines family simply did not cross. Money was one of them. After my husband, Harold, died 6 years earlier, I stayed in the little brick house in Columbus where we had spent most of our marriage. The mortgage had been paid off 3 years before his death. Harold used to joke that owning the roof over our heads was the closest thing ordinary people had to feeling rich. We weren't rich, we were careful. There is a difference. I had worked in payroll for an insurance company for more than 30 years. Harold had worked maintenance for the city. We packed lunches instead of buying them, drove cars until they started making noises. No mechanic could explain, and treated credit cards like tools rather than extra income. By retirement, we had built something modest but secure. After Harold died, that security became precious to me. I received Social Security, a small pension, and had savings I intended to stretch for the rest of my life. Vanessa knew all of that. She also knew I had always been willing to help her. At first, it was little things. Mom, could you get Alyssa from school Tuesday? I have a meeting. Of course. Then it became, could you grab Ethan too? Marcus is traveling. Of course. Soon Tuesday became Thursday too. Then Monday. Before I realized it, there were weeks when I spent more afternoons at Vanessa's house than my own. I didn't resent it. Alyssa was 11, old enough to sit at the kitchen island telling me everything that happened at school while pretending she wasn't hungry. Ethan was 8, and still young enough to throw his arms around my waist when I walked through the door. Those moments mattered to me. I knew they wouldn't stay children forever. So when Vanessa needed help, I usually said yes. I'd pick them up from school, take Ethan to soccer drive, Alyssa to dance, supervise homework, and start dinner before Vanessa and Marcus got home. Sometimes Vanessa would text at 5:30, running late. Can you feed them? I already had. Sometimes at 6:30. Marcus and I are exhausted. Could you stay until bedtime? And I stayed. I bought groceries too. Nothing extravagant. Milk, bread, fruit, cereal, chicken breasts, juice boxes, whatever the children needed. One afternoon, Vanessa opened her refrigerator and saw me putting away 2 bags from Kroger. Mom, you have to stop paying for our groceries. It was $40. $40 here, $60 there. It adds up. I smiled. I'm not going broke buying Ethan bananas. She laughed. Then she suggested something that sounded perfectly sensible. I had a credit card I rarely used except for household purchases. Vanessa suggested I add her as an authorized user and let the card stay at her house. When you're here with the kids, use it for groceries, she said. And if I have to stop somewhere for something you need for them, I can use it too. Then you won't have to keep digging through your purse and saving receipts. I should have heard the irony in that last part. Saving receipts had been practically a religion during my working years. But this was my daughter, so I agreed. A week later, the additional card arrived with Vanessa's name on it. She held it up and grinned. Mom's grocery card. That was what we called it from then on, the grocery card. For the first several weeks, that was exactly what it was. Kroger $63.41, Target $48.17, Costco $112.36. Nothing looked unusual. I still checked my statements every month because old habits die hard. I had spent 3 decades finding payroll discrepancies down to the penny. Numbers spoke to me in a way people sometimes didn't. Then the amounts started changing. There was a $186 Target purchase. I asked Vanessa about it casually. School supplies, she said. And Ethan needed new sneakers. Reasonable. A few weeks later, there was $247 at Costco. Bulk groceries, Vanessa explained. Everything's gotten so expensive. Also reasonable. Then I noticed a charge at a department store. $129. I stared at it longer than I should have. When I mentioned it, Vanessa didn't hesitate. Alyssa needed clothes for that school presentation. I forgot to tell you. Again, believable. Every transaction came with an explanation that was just plausible enough to make me feel foolish for questioning it. And every time I felt that little tug in my stomach, another voice answered it. She's your daughter, Laverne. Not a stranger. Not some scammer. Your daughter. That sentence became my excuse for ignoring things I would never have ignored professionally. One evening, I was sitting at Vanessa's kitchen table while Ethan worked on multiplication problems. Vanessa came downstairs wearing a new blouse. It was beautiful cream-colored silky with pearl buttons. "You look nice," I told her. She smiled. "Clearance rack." I couldn't resist. I remember that blouse because 2 weeks later I noticed a charge from the same store where she'd bought it. I almost asked. Instead, I closed the statement. That was the moment I later returned to again and again. Not because the blouse mattered, because my silence did. I had confused trust with refusing to verify. The more I helped, the more normal my help became. If Vanessa needed me to pick up the children, she stopped asking whether I was available. She simply texted the schedule. If the refrigerator was empty, I filled it. If Ethan needed soccer cleats while I was watching him, I bought them. If Alyssa needed poster board at 8 o'clock at night, Grandma drove to Target. I told myself this was what family did. Maybe sometimes it is. But there is a quiet point where generosity can become expectation, and expectation can become entitlement. I didn't see when we crossed it. Or maybe I saw it and didn't want to admit it. One Sunday afternoon, Vanessa and Marcus came over for dinner. After we ate, Marcus helped Ethan find his shoes, while Vanessa stood beside me in the kitchen. She picked up my credit card statement from the counter. "You still check these line by line every month." She laughed. "Mom, you worked in payroll too long. That's why I still have money." She rolled her eyes affectionately and kissed my cheek. Then she put the statement back down. At the time, the exchange seemed harmless. Later, I wondered whether that was the moment Vanessa realized something important about me. I checked my statements, but I trusted her explanations more than I trusted the numbers. That was all she needed. Because once someone learns that your love will silence your instincts, the amounts don't have to stay small. And they didn't. 3 weeks before the cruise, Vanessa called me on a Saturday morning with so much excitement in her voice that I assumed she had gotten a promotion. "Mom, guess what? I was standing at my kitchen sink rinsing out my coffee mug. What? Marcus and I are finally doing something for ourselves." I smiled. "That sounds dangerous." She laughed. "We booked a cruise 7 nights in the Caribbean, 8 days total with travel." For a second, I didn't know what to say. Vanessa had complained about money more than once that year. The property taxes had gone up. Ethan needed braces soon. Their SUV had required an expensive repair. She had even mentioned postponing replacing their washing machine. Still, I didn't want to spoil her excitement. "Well, I said 15 years of marriage deserves celebrating. I knew you'd understand." She started describing everything: a balcony cabin, a formal dinner, a snorkeling excursion, a private beach day. One evening where everyone dressed in white. I could hear her smiling through the phone. Part of me was genuinely happy for her. Raising children while both parents worked was exhausting. Marcus traveled for sales several times a month, and Vanessa's job had become more demanding. But another part of me was doing arithmetic. Not because I wanted to judge her, because numbers had lived in my head for 30 years. 7-night Caribbean cruises didn't cost what a weekend at a motel cost. especially not with a balcony cabin and excursions. I almost asked how they were paying for it. Instead, I swallowed the question. Vanessa was 39 years old. Her finances were her business. At least that was what I believed then. 2 days later, I went to their house after school. Vanessa was sitting at the kitchen island with her laptop open and a yellow legal pad beside it. Perfect timing, she said when I walked in. I put my purse down. For what, the cruise schedule? She turned the legal pad toward me. At first, I thought she meant her itinerary. Then I saw my name written across the top. Mom kids schedule. Monday school drop-off 7:40. Ethan soccer 5:30. Tuesday, Alyssa dance 4:16. Wednesday, early dismissal. Thursday soccer again. Friday library book return. There were meal reminders, homework notes, medication instructions for Ethan's seasonal allergies, and even a line that said, "Dog walk AM PM." I stared at the page. What's this? Vanessa looked surprised. The schedule for when we're gone. I waited. She waited too. Finally, I asked, when did I agree to stay here for 8 days? Her expression changed slightly. Not guilt. Confusion. As though I had asked why the sun planned to rise tomorrow. I thought we talked about it. No. Really, really. She waved one hand dismissively. Well, I must have thought I did. But you're available, right? That question bothered me more than I wanted to admit. Not, would you mind? Not, could you help us? You're available, right, I suppose. Thank God. She pushed the legal pad closer. You can just stay here. It'll be easier than bringing the kids to your place because all their stuff is here. I looked down again. 8 days, 2 children, a dog, school runs, activities, meals, laundry, homework, and apparently I had already been assigned the job. Aren't the kids coming with you? Vanessa laughed. Mom, it's our anniversary. I know, I just assumed maybe it was a family vacation. No, absolutely not. Marcus and I haven't had a real trip alone in forever. That was true. Still, something about the conversation felt wrong. Then Alyssa came through the front door. Grandma. She hugged me, dropped her backpack on the floor, and immediately asked whether I could help her make cupcakes for a school fundraiser. Vanessa smiled. See, they'd rather stay with you anyway. I kissed the top of Alyssa's head. And just like that, my discomfort became guilt. How could I object when my grandchildren wanted me? That was the trap I had built for myself. Vanessa didn't even have to set it. The following Sunday, everyone came to my house for dinner. I made pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, and cornbread. Harold had loved Sunday dinners, and keeping that tradition made the house feel less empty. After dinner, Marcus and I cleared the table. He seemed genuinely excited about the cruise. I haven't turned my work phone off for more than a day in 3 years, he said. Then turn it off. Oh, I plan to. Vanessa came in carrying 2 wine glasses. We've already made a rule. No work emails. Good luck enforcing that with him, I said. Marcus laughed. Then he looked toward the living room where Ethan and Alyssa were arguing over the television. We should probably get somebody to help Laverne while we're gone. I glanced at him. Before I could answer, Vanessa laughed. Help her with what? 8 days is a long time with those two. Oh, please. She waved her glass toward me. Mom can handle them better than we can. Marcus grinned. True. Vanessa took a sip of wine. Then she said it. Besides thing, Grandma's free. Marcus chuckled. Vanessa laughed. I smiled too, automatically. The way women sometimes smile when something hurts but we don't want to ruin dinner. Nobody noticed. Or if they did, they chose not to. Free. The word followed me into the kitchen. I stood at the sink rinsing plates while everyone else talked behind me. Free. I thought about Tuesday pickups, emergency babysitting, school holidays, date nights, soccer practices, dance classes, meals, groceries, sick days. There had been a morning the previous winter when Vanessa called me at 5:45 because Ethan had a fever and she couldn't miss a presentation. I arrived before 7. I stayed 11 hours. I washed sheets after he got sick. I made soup. I picked Alyssa up from school. When Vanessa came home, she kissed my cheek and said, "You're a lifesaver." I had felt appreciated, but somewhere between lifesaver and free something had changed. The next week, Vanessa sent me a revised schedule. She didn't call, just a text. Added a couple things. Printed copy will be on fridge. I opened the attachment. Now there was grocery shopping on Wednesday, laundry Thursday. A note reminding me that the dog needed his heartworm medication. At the bottom, Vanessa had written, "Please make sure kids shower Sunday night. School picks Monday." I stared at my phone. For the first time, I wondered what would happen if I simply said no. Would Vanessa understand? Would she find someone else? Or would she act as though I had broken a promise I had never actually made? I typed Vanessa. This is a lot for 8 days. I watched the little dots appear, then disappear, then appear again. Finally, "You'll be fine, Mom. The kids are easy for you." That wasn't an answer. I typed another message, then deleted it. I didn't want conflict. That had become another habit since Harold died. When you're alone, family gatherings become more precious. You start protecting harmony because you're afraid boundaries might cost you closeness. So I told myself 8 days wasn't forever. I told myself Vanessa deserved a vacation. I told myself I loved my grandchildren. All of those things were true. But another truth was beginning to whisper underneath them. I was no longer being asked, I was being assigned. 2 days later, I stopped by Vanessa's house to drop off Ethan's soccer cleats, which he had forgotten in my car. Nobody was home yet. Vanessa had given me a key years earlier, so I let myself in. The refrigerator was covered with school artwork magnets, appointment cards, and the printed schedule for their cruise week. I stood there reading it. 8 days of my life had been organized down to the hour by someone who had never asked whether those hours belonged to her. At the very bottom, Vanessa had added another handwritten note. "Mom, groceries are on the card if you need anything." I looked at that sentence for several seconds. The grocery card. I had no idea then how much that little piece of plastic was about to change between my daughter and me. But I remember standing in that kitchen and feeling something I couldn't yet name. It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was the uncomfortable feeling of finally noticing a pattern that had been there for years. And once you see a pattern, it becomes much harder to pretend it's just coincidence. The morning I found the $4,060 charge, I didn't confront Vanessa. That surprised even me. 20 years earlier, I probably would have slapped the statement onto the counter and demanded an explanation before she could take another breath. But age had taught me something anger never could. When you're dealing with money, facts should enter the room before emotions do. So I finished cutting the strawberries. I put them into a bowl for Alyssa, and Ethan wiped the counter and slipped my phone from my purse. Vanessa had gone upstairs to finish packing. I photographed the statement. Then I folded it exactly as I'd found it. By the time Vanessa came back downstairs, I was washing the knife. "You okay, Mom?" "Fine." She glanced at the clock. "I've got to run to Target. I still need sunscreen and a few travel-size things." Travel-size things. I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "Go ahead." She kissed my cheek. "Love you." "I love you too." That was the painful part. I meant it. Driving home, I kept seeing the number. $4,860. There are numbers that don't feel real until you say them aloud. At my kitchen table, I opened my laptop and logged into the credit card account. For a moment, I just stared at the balance. Then I put on my reading glasses. The cruise charge was there. There was no mistake. $4,860. I clicked backward through the transactions. A smaller charge from the same cruise company had appeared several weeks earlier. $600. Deposit. Then I found $287.44 from a travel insurance provider. Another $436.80 from what appeared to be an excursion booking service. There was $310 at a luggage store, $264 at a department store, $189 at a swimwear retailer, one after another. I took out the yellow legal pad I kept beside my desk. Old payroll habits. Date. Merchant. Amount. I wrote down every transaction that appeared connected to the trip. When I finished, I added them twice. The total was more than $6,000. I sat back. My first reaction wasn't rage, it was fear. At 67, $6,000 was not an abstract number. It was property taxes, home repairs, dental work Medicare wouldn't fully cover, a furnace that might fail in January, months of groceries. Harold and I had spent decades building our savings one paycheck at a time. We had never inherited money. Nobody had handed us a house. Nobody had paid our debts. We had earned what we had. And now my daughter had treated my available credit as though it were part of her vacation budget. I picked up my phone and called the number on the back of my card. After the usual automated questions, a representative came on. I explained that I was the primary account holder and that an authorized user had made purchases I had not personally approved. The woman was professional but careful. "Do you recognize the authorized user?" "Yes, she's my daughter." There was a pause. "And you added her to the account voluntarily?" "Yes." She explained that because Vanessa was an authorized user, the transactions were not automatically treated the same way as charges made by a stranger who had stolen the card. My stomach tightened. So if she doesn't pay these charges, who does? You, as the primary account holder, are ultimately responsible for the balance. I already suspected that. Hearing it aloud was different. And my credit payment history and utilization can affect the primary account holder's credit profile. I looked at the yellow pad. Over $6,000. So she can spend it, I said quietly. But I'm responsible for it. The representative hesitated. In general terms, yes. I thanked her. Before hanging up, I asked what steps were available if I wanted to remove an authorized user. She explained them. I wrote everything down. But I didn't remove Vanessa yet. Not because I planned to leave the card open, because I wanted to understand exactly what had happened first. After the call, I sat in silence. On the bookshelf across from me was a photograph of Harold. He was 59 in that picture, standing beside our old Buick, with one hand on the roof and a ridiculous grin on his face. Harold had one rule about retirement money. We're too old to earn it twice. He used to say that whenever one of us was tempted by something unnecessary. At 35, losing a few $1,000s hurts. At 67, the same loss carries a different fear. Time. You don't know how many earning years remain, because for many of us, there aren't any. I looked back at the computer. Then another thought hit me. What if this wasn't the first time I returned to the account history? At first, I searched only for obvious travel-related purchases. Then I widened the date range. There were the familiar grocery stores, Kroger, Costco, Target. But now that I wasn't looking at the transactions as isolated purchases, certain things bothered me. A Target charge for $186, another for $214, Costco for $247, a department store for $120. I remembered asking about some of them. School supplies, bulk groceries, clothes for Alyssa. Always an explanation, always just believable enough. I wanted to dig further, but I stopped myself. That investigation would come later. First, I needed to hear Vanessa explain the cruise. I called her. She answered on the third ring. "Hey, Mom." Her voice was cheerful. I could hear music in the background. "Are you home?" "Yeah. Just packing." "Why, I need to talk to you." There was a small pause. "About what, the card?" Silence. Not long. Maybe 2 seconds. But mothers know their children's silences. I had heard Vanessa hesitate before admitting she'd broken a lamp at 12. Before telling me she'd failed a college class. Before confessing she'd dented Harold's car. This was the same silence. She knew. What card, she asked. That hurt almost as much as the charge. The grocery card. Another pause. "Oh, I'd like to come over." "Mom, if this is about some Target charge, I can explain." "It's not Target." The music disappeared. Either she had turned it off or walked into another room. I continued. "It's about $4,860 charged to a Caribbean cruise line." She didn't answer. "And the deposit?" Still nothing. "And the travel insurance?" "Mom, and the excursions." Her voice changed. "Can we not do this over the phone? I wasn't planning to." She sighed. Then she said something that told me more than any denial could have. I was going to pay it back. I closed my eyes. There it was. No confusion. No stolen card. No billing error. She had done it. "I'm coming over." Mom, wait. You're making this sound worse than it is. Then you'll have an opportunity to make it sound better. I ended the call. My hands were trembling. Not because I was afraid of Vanessa, because I knew whatever happened next would change something between us. Money can be repaid. Trust is different. Before leaving, I went upstairs and changed my blouse. That might sound ridiculous, but I needed the ritual. Something ordinary, something controlled. I looked at myself in the mirror. Gray beginning to show more prominently through my short curls. Lines around my eyes. Harold used to call them evidence. Evidence of what I'd once asked. That you've survived people. I smiled at the memory. Then I picked up my purse, my yellow legal pad, and printed copies of the transactions. On the drive to Vanessa's house, I rehearsed what I wanted to say. No shouting, no accusations I couldn't prove, just questions. When I pulled into her driveway, Marcus's SUV wasn't there. Good. I wanted to speak to my daughter first. Vanessa opened the door before I reached the porch. She had changed too. Her vacation smile was gone. Mom. I walked inside. She followed me into the kitchen. On the refrigerator was the schedule she'd made for my 8 days of childcare. School, soccer, dance, meals, dog. My entire week organized for me. And beside it was a photograph Vanessa had printed from the cruise website. Blue water, white ship, palm trees. I put the statements on the kitchen island between us. Vanessa looked at them, then at me. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I want you to tell me why my grocery card is paying for your anniversary cruise. For the first time since this began, my daughter had no quick answer. And watching her face, I realized the $6,000 might not be the worst thing I was about to discover. Vanessa stared at the statements as if refusing to touch them might somehow make the numbers disappear. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, she pulled out a chair. Mom, sit down. I'd rather stand. She rubbed both hands over her face. You're making this into something it isn't. That sentence immediately bothered me. I hadn't accused her of stealing. I hadn't called her irresponsible. I had asked one question. Why was my grocery card paying for her cruise? What is it then, I asked. Vanessa pushed the statement slightly toward me. It was temporary. $6,000 is temporary, I told you on the phone. I'm paying it back. When? She hesitated. After the trip. With what money? Her eyes hardened. I have a job. So does Marcus. Exactly. Then why didn't either of you use your own credit card? She stood and walked toward the refrigerator. For a moment, I thought she might actually answer. Instead, she opened the refrigerator, took out a bottle of water, and twisted the cap so hard I heard the plastic crack. Our cards are carrying balances. How much? That isn't your business. I almost smiled at the contradiction. My finances became your business when you put your vacation on my account. She looked away. It's our 15th anniversary, Mom. I know. We haven't taken a real vacation alone since Ethan was born. I know that too. Marcus works constantly. I'm exhausted. The kids need something every 5 minutes. My job has been insane. I just wanted 1 week where nobody needed me. Her voice cracked slightly. And because I was her mother, some part of me immediately wanted to comfort her. That instinct was so deeply rooted, I could feel it before I could stop it. I understood exhaustion. I understood wanting escape. What I didn't understand was why my retirement money had become the solution. You could have asked me, I said. Vanessa gave a short laugh. Asked you what? Whether you could use my card. I knew I'd pay you back. That wasn't my question. She started pacing. You've helped me before, with groceries. You've helped with more than groceries. Yes, because I chose to. She stopped. What's that supposed to mean? It means there's a difference between me giving you something and you taking it, because you assume I would. Her face tightened. Taking it seriously. What would you call using someone else's credit for a $6,000 vacation without permission? You're acting like I stole your purse. No. I'm acting like you used my account without asking. She crossed her arms. Then she said the sentence I had been afraid was sitting underneath all of this. You have savings, Mom. I went still. Vanessa must have seen my expression because she immediately softened her tone. I don't mean it like that. How do you mean it? You're comfortable. Comfortable doesn't mean available. I know. Do you? She sighed. You own your house outright. You have Dad's pension, my pension. She stopped. I continued quietly. Your father didn't leave me some magical pile of money. We worked for what I have. I know that. Then don't count it as though it's part of your household income. Her cheeks flushed. I wasn't counting it. You just listed it. That silenced her. I looked at my daughter and felt something heavier than anger. Disappointment. Vanessa had grown up watching Harold and me save. She knew we had skipped vacations when money was tight. She knew Harold had driven the same pickup for 17 years. She knew I had packed lunches for work instead of buying them. She knew exactly what those savings represented. Time, work, sacrifice. I tapped the statement. Why didn't you ask me? Vanessa looked toward the window. Vanessa. I don't know. Yes, you do. She shook her head. Mom, can we just… Why didn't you ask? She spun back toward me. Because you would have said no. The room became completely quiet. There are moments when the truth arrives without drama. No shouting, no slammed doors, just one sentence. Because you would have said no. I stared at her. She stared back. And suddenly every excuse she'd given me collapsed. This hadn't been a misunderstanding. Vanessa hadn't assumed I wouldn't mind. She had known I would mind. That was precisely why she hadn't asked. So you knew. She looked down. I knew you'd worry. No. You knew I'd say no. You always think vacations are a waste of money. When you can't afford them, they are. You don't understand what my life is like. Before I could answer, the garage door opened. Marcus. A minute later, he walked into the kitchen carrying his laptop bag. He looked from Vanessa to me. Everything okay? Neither of us answered. Marcus put his bag down. What happened? Vanessa spoke quickly. My mom found the cruise charges. Marcus frowned. Okay. Then he looked at me. I was going to thank you properly before we left Laverne. I stared at him. Thank me for what? His smile disappeared. The trip. Vanessa closed her eyes. I turned slowly toward her. What did you tell him? Mom. Marcus looked confused. What are you talking about? I picked up the statement. Marcus, did Vanessa tell you I was paying for your anniversary cruise? He looked at his wife, then back at me. She said you wanted to do something special for our 15th. My stomach dropped. No. Marcus's face changed. What, I didn't give you this trip. He looked at Vanessa. Vanessa. She didn't answer. I continued. She charged it to an authorized user card on my account without asking. Marcus's expression moved from confusion to disbelief. You said your mom offered. I said she was helping. No. You said she gave us the trip. Marcus, please. How much? Vanessa didn't answer. I did. More than $6,000 so far. Marcus stared at her. 6,000. I was going to pay it back. With what? The same question I'd asked. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. I don't know yet. Marcus stepped away from the counter. I could see him trying to process what he had just learned. Then Vanessa looked at me. Fine, I screwed up. Is that what you want to hear? No. What do you want? I want you to understand why this is wrong. I said I'll pay it back. That's about the money. What else is there? I almost couldn't believe she asked. The lying. She looked toward Marcus. The entitlement. Her jaw tightened. The fact that you knew I'd say no and decided my answer didn't matter. Vanessa wiped at her eyes. I said I'm sorry. But she hadn't. Not really. She had said she'd pay me back. Those weren't the same thing. Marcus walked into the living room without another word. Vanessa watched him leave. Then she turned to me. Her voice became quieter. Mom, please don't make this worse before we leave. I stared at her. You're still planning to go? We've paid for everything. With my card. I know. And I will fix it. She took a breath. Then almost unbelievably she glanced at the schedule on the refrigerator. So, we're still good with the kids, right? For a moment I thought I'd misunderstood her. What, Alyssa and Ethan? You're still staying here while we're gone. I looked at my daughter. We had just spent nearly an hour discussing how she had used thousands of dollars from my account without permission. Her husband had just discovered she'd lied to him, and she still assumed my 8 days belonged to her. Something inside me became very calm. I didn't answer. Mom. I picked up my purse. Laverne, please. I folded the statements and placed them inside. What am I supposed to do about childcare if you back out now? There it was again. Not, are you okay? Not, can we fix this? What am I supposed to do? I walked toward the refrigerator. The schedule was still there: school drop-offs, soccer, dance, meals, laundry, dog walking. 8 days of labor listed neatly under my name. Then I noticed a blank sheet of paper held by a magnet beside it. I stared at that empty page, and suddenly I knew exactly what I was going to put on it. I'll let you know tomorrow, I said. Let me know what I looked at, Vanessa. My terms. Then I walked out. That night I didn't cry. I didn't call relatives. I didn't cancel the card yet. Instead, I sat at my dining room table with a calculator, a notebook, and Vanessa's 8-day schedule. For the first time in years, I stopped thinking like Grandma. I started thinking like the payroll specialist I used to be. If Vanessa wanted to treat my time like a service she was entitled to, maybe it was time she saw exactly what that service was worth. I stayed at my dining room table until nearly midnight. Vanessa's schedule was spread in front of me beside a calculator, a yellow legal pad, and a cup of tea that had gone cold hours earlier. For years I had described what I did for my grandchildren with one harmless word: helping. But that night I stopped calling it helping and started listing the actual work. Wake 2 children, make breakfast, pack lunches, drive them to school, pick them up, help with homework, drive Alyssa to dance, drive Ethan to soccer, buy groceries, cook dinner, wash dishes, do laundry, walk the dog, handle bedtime, sleep in someone else's house so 2 adults could be hundreds of miles away, then wake up and do it again. 8 days. I stared at the list. When I had worked in payroll, I had learned that labor becomes strangely invisible when nobody attaches a number to it, so I attached numbers. I searched average childcare rates around Columbus, then deliberately chose amounts that weren't outrageous. Standard childcare, $20 an hour. Overnight care, $75 per night. Meal preparation, $15 per meal. Dog care, $25 per day. Transportation would be mileage. And because Vanessa had effectively booked me without asking, I added something that made me smile for the first time all evening. Last-minute booking surcharge, 25%. When I estimated 8 days, the total passed $2,000. I leaned back. Would I ever actually charge my daughter $2,000 to spend time with Alyssa and Ethan? Probably not. That wasn't the point. The point was that Vanessa needed to see a number beside something she had decided was worth 0. I opened my laptop. At the top of a blank page, I typed, Grandma's sitting rates. Then I listed everything neatly. At the bottom, I added payment required before departure. I printed it. The printer hummed in the quiet house. I picked up the sheet and laughed softly. Harold would have loved it. He had been a gentleman, but he believed strongly that people treated boundaries according to how clearly you drew them. You can't complain somebody crossed a line, he once told me, if you spent 20 years erasing it for them. At the time, we'd been talking about something completely different. That night, it felt like he was talking directly to me. The next morning, I arrived at Vanessa's house shortly after 7. Marcus's SUV was already gone. Vanessa was upstairs getting ready for work. Alyssa sat at the kitchen island eating cereal, while Ethan searched for a missing sneaker. Grandma, Ethan yelled, "Have you seen my blue shoe?" "Why would I know where your shoe is? Because you know where everything is." That answer almost broke my heart. I found the sneaker under the couch. Of course I did. After the children left for school, Vanessa came downstairs. She looked tired. About yesterday, not yet. I walked toward the refrigerator. The cruise week schedule was still hanging there. I placed my printed sheet directly beside it and secured it with 2 magnets. Vanessa read the heading. Her eyebrows pulled together. Then she read the first line, then the second. By the time she reached payment required before departure, her face had changed completely. "What is this? My terms." She looked at me as though I'd lost my mind. "You're serious? You wanted to know whether I was still watching the children. You're charging me. I've provided the rates." She snatched the page off the refrigerator. $22 an hour. That's reasonable childcare. I'm your daughter, I know. They're your grandchildren, I know that too. She pointed at another line. $75 to sleep in my house overnight care. $15 per meal preparation. Dog care. The dog isn't my grandchild. That almost made her laugh. Almost. Instead, she slapped the paper onto the counter. "This is unbelievably petty." I folded my hands. "Is it?" "Yes, you used more than $6,000 of my credit without permission. And I told you I'm paying it back. When I don't know yet. Then perhaps you understand why I'm no longer comfortable extending free services on credit." Her mouth fell open. "You're punishing the kids." "No, you are. You're making this about money when it's supposed to be family." That word again. Family. The word people sometimes use when they want generosity without accountability. "I love Alyssa and Ethan," I said. "Nothing on that paper changes that." "Then why charge to spend time with them? I'm not charging to love them." I pointed toward the schedule. "I'm charging for being assigned 8 days as a nanny, chauffeur, cook, housekeeper, and dog sitter without being asked." Vanessa stared at me. "Grandmothers don't charge. Some grandmothers also aren't handed work schedules." "You agreed no. You assumed. You said you'd do it. After you'd already booked everything and presented me with the schedule." She shook her head. "This is childish." "No, Vanessa. Childish was using my card because you knew I would say no if you asked." That landed. She looked away. I took the rate sheet and put it back on the refrigerator. Vanessa immediately pulled it down again. I put it back. "Stop doing that. Then leave it there. This is my house, and that's my time." For several seconds, we simply looked at each other. Then Vanessa's expression hardened. "You know we can't afford $2,000 for childcare on top of everything else." I almost couldn't believe what I was hearing. "On top of what, the trip?" "You mean the trip I financed?" She rubbed her forehead. "Please stop saying it like that." "How should I say it? You're making me sound like some criminal. I haven't called you anything. You don't have to." Her eyes filled with tears. For a moment I saw the little girl she had once been, and for a moment I nearly surrendered. Then I remembered what she'd said. "Because you would have said no." I had spent too many years teaching Vanessa that my discomfort could always be overcome by hers. Not anymore. "If my money has value to you," I said quietly, "then my time has value too." She looked at me. Neither of us spoke. Finally, she whispered, "You're really going to ruin our anniversary over this, no?" I picked up my purse. "You're experiencing consequences from a decision I didn't make." "Mom." I walked toward the door. "What am I supposed to tell Marcus?" "The truth would be a good start." Her face flushed. I opened the door. Then Vanessa said something that stopped me. "Everyone is going to think this is ridiculous." I turned around. "Everyone. My family. Marcus's family. Anyone I tell." There was something almost threatening in the way she said it. Not dangerous, but familiar. The old pressure. What will people think? I had spent much of my life caring about that question. At 67, I was beginning to understand how expensive it could be. "Then tell them," I said. Vanessa blinked. "What? Tell everyone exactly what happened?" She crossed her arms. "I might." "Good." I stepped outside. Behind me, the door closed harder than necessary. I drove home with a strange mixture of sadness and relief. Setting a boundary didn't feel triumphant. It felt terrible. Nobody tells you that part. When you've spent years being useful to the people you love, saying no can feel almost like abandoning them. I kept wondering whether I had gone too far. Maybe the rate sheet really was petty. Maybe I should have simply refused. Maybe I should have watched the children and dealt with the money afterward. Then I remembered Vanessa laughing at dinner. "Good thing Grandma's free." No. The paper wasn't about collecting $2,000. It was about making invisible labor visible. That afternoon, my phone buzzed. A message from my younger sister, Denise. Laverne, what's going on with you and Vanessa? I stared at the screen. Another message arrived from my cousin, then another. My stomach tightened. I opened our family group chat. There it was. Vanessa had posted a photograph of my rate sheet. Above it, she'd written, "My mother just decided she's charging me over $2,000 to watch her own grandchildren while Marcus and I celebrate our anniversary. Am I crazy for thinking this is cruel?" I read it twice. She had told everyone, just not exactly what happened. For several minutes, I watched the replies appear. Some were confused, some defended me, but others didn't. That's a little much, Laverne. They're your grandbabies. Family shouldn't charge family like a business. I felt the old instinct rise again. Explain yourself. Defend yourself. Beg people to understand. Then I looked at the credit card statement sitting beside me. $4,860. I picked it up. And suddenly I knew exactly what I was going to post in that group chat. Vanessa wanted the family involved. Fine. But if we were going to tell the story publicly, we were going to tell the whole story. I stared at the family group chat for almost 5 minutes before I typed a single word. Vanessa's photograph of my rate sheet sat there like evidence in a trial where she'd already written the verdict. Cruel, petty, a grandmother charging to watch her own grandchildren. If that were the whole story, I might have agreed with them. My cousin Patricia had written $2,000 Laverne, their family. My brother-in-law added, "I understand wanting boundaries, but this seems extreme." Then my younger sister Denise sent me a private message. "Call me before you say anything angry." I almost smiled. Denise knew me well, but I wasn't angry anymore. I was tired of half-truths. I took the cruise statement and laid it on my kitchen table. Using my phone's editing tool, I covered the account number, address, and every piece of private information. I left 3 things visible: the cruise line, the date, and $4,860. Then I posted the photograph beneath Vanessa's message. I wrote one sentence. "Would anyone like to explain why my grocery card paid for a Caribbean cruise I never agreed to buy?" I pressed send. Then I set the phone down. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. The chat had been active enough before. Everyone had opinions when they thought the problem was an unreasonable grandmother. Now there was silence. Then Denise replied. What Patricia followed. "Wait, that's your card." Another relative wrote, "Vanessa said you gave them the trip." I read that twice. You gave them the trip. So Marcus wasn't the only one who had been told that story. Vanessa responded almost immediately. "Mom, seriously. You're posting financial information now." I typed, "I removed all private information. That isn't the point." I waited, then wrote, "No. The point is that you told everyone I suddenly decided to charge you for childcare. You left out why." The chat went quiet again. A minute later, Patricia wrote, "Vanessa, did your mom authorize that cruise charge?" Vanessa didn't answer. Another minute passed. Then Denise, "That's a yes or no question." Still nothing. My phone rang. Vanessa. I let it ring. Not because I wanted to punish her, because I knew exactly what would happen if I answered. She would cry. I would soften. The conversation would shift from what she'd done to how badly she felt about being confronted. I loved my daughter too much to keep helping her escape the consequences of her own decisions. The phone stopped, then rang again. I declined the call. A few seconds later, a message appeared in the family chat. Vanessa wrote, "I already told Mom I'm paying her back. This is being blown completely out of proportion." Denise responded first. "You used her card without asking Vanessa." Without asking Vanessa. "She gave me access to it. Denise, for groceries." That ended the conversation for a while. Then something unexpected happened. People started apologizing to me. Patricia wrote privately, "I didn't know the whole story. I'm sorry." My brother-in-law sent almost the same thing. Even the cousin who had written their family deleted her original message. I didn't feel victorious. I felt embarrassed. This was my family, my daughter. I didn't want people choosing sides. But Vanessa had dragged our disagreement into a public room because she believed public pressure would make me surrender. All I had done was turn on the light. Around 6 that evening, my phone rang again. This time it was Marcus. I answered. Hello, Laverne. His voice sounded exhausted. Do you have a minute? Yes. There was a pause. I need you to tell me exactly how much Vanessa put on your card. I looked toward the yellow legal pad. A little over $6,000 connected to the cruise. He exhaled slowly. 6,000 total, that's what I've identified so far. So far, I haven't reviewed everything else yet. Another silence. Then Marcus said, Can I come over? 20 minutes later, his SUV pulled into my driveway. When I opened the door, he looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. He followed me into the kitchen. I put coffee on. He didn't want any. Show me, he said. I brought out the printed transactions. Marcus sat at my table and read each line. Cruise, insurance, excursions, luggage, clothing. He rubbed his jaw. I didn't know. I believe you. He looked up. You do, yes. Why? Because of your face when you found out yesterday. Marcus looked back at the papers. She told me this was your anniversary gift to us. I know. She said you wanted to surprise me. I sat across from him. She told the family the same thing. He shook his head slowly. I thought it was generous. Too generous, honestly. I asked her if she was sure. What did Vanessa say? That you'd been talking about doing something special for us, because 15 years was a big deal. I closed my eyes briefly. Vanessa hadn't simply used my card and hoped nobody noticed. She had created a story around it. A gift. My gift. That lie allowed Marcus to enjoy the trip without asking where the money came from. It allowed relatives to congratulate them. And it allowed Vanessa to pretend, perhaps even to herself, that she hadn't crossed a line. Marcus leaned back. There are things that haven't been making sense. What things? He hesitated. She keeps saying money is tight, but packages show up constantly. I didn't answer. She told me she was paying off one of our cards, he continued. I checked it this afternoon. The balance is higher than it was 3 months ago. My old payroll instincts woke up. Do you manage your finances together? Vanessa handles most of the bills. Do you know every account you have? I thought I did. The word thought hung between us. Marcus looked ashamed. I travel. She pays the household bills. I check our joint checking account, but I haven't looked closely at the cards. That needs to change. I know. He picked up one of the statements. Then he pointed to a Target charge. Is this hers too? Probably. What was it for? She said school supplies. Marcus frowned. When I gave him the date, his expression changed. The kids' school supplies came out of our checking account that week. I remember because it was almost $300. A cold feeling moved through me. I looked at the transaction again. $186.40. Target. Vanessa had explained it without hesitation. School supplies. But if Marcus was right, those supplies had already been purchased separately. Another memory surfaced. The department store charge. $129. Alyssa's clothes for a school presentation. I had never seen those clothes. I stood. What are you doing getting the older statements? I brought a folder from my desk. Marcus and I spread 12 months of transactions across the table. Suddenly, the cruise didn't look like one terrible decision. It looked like the largest piece of a pattern. Restaurants, department stores, online retailers, repeated Target purchases far beyond what I'd expect for groceries. Marcus pointed to another charge. She told me she stopped shopping there. I circled it, then another, and another. Neither of us spoke for several minutes. Finally, Marcus said, How much has she actually spent? I don't know. He looked at me. But you're going to find out. Yes. He nodded. So am I. Before leaving, Marcus stood at my front door with his keys in his hand. I owe you an apology, too. You didn't use the card. No. But I benefited from not asking questions. That was more accountability than I'd heard from Vanessa yet. After he left, I returned to the table. The statements were everywhere. I began sorting them month by month. January, February, March. By the time I reached April, I noticed something I hadn't paid attention to before, a payment to my credit card account. Then another the following month. Small amounts, minimum payments. At first I felt relieved. Maybe Vanessa had been paying some of what she spent. Then I clicked the payment details online. My relief disappeared. The money hadn't come from Vanessa's checking account. It had come from mine. I stared at the bank name. My bank. My checking account. Years earlier, when I had cataract surgery, I'd given Vanessa limited access to help me manage bills during recovery. That had been temporary. Or at least I thought it had. I reached for my phone, then stopped. No. This time I wasn't calling Vanessa first. This time I was going through every statement, every payment, and every transfer. Because the cruise was no longer the question. The question was how long my daughter had been using my money while letting me believe I was simply helping with groceries. And I had a terrible feeling the answer was going to hurt far more than $4,860. I started with January. If I was going to understand what Vanessa had done, I needed to stop looking at individual purchases and start looking for patterns. That was how I had survived 30 years in payroll. One strange number could be a mistake. 3 strange numbers were a question. 12 months of strange numbers were a system. I spread the statements across my dining room table in chronological order. Then I opened a fresh page on my yellow legal pad and divided it into 3 columns. Groceries, children, unexplained. At first the process felt almost comforting. Kroger 74.26, groceries, Costco 136.82, probably groceries, Target 42.17, could be household supplies. Then the clean categories began disappearing. A department store charge for $129. Vanessa had told me it was clothing for Alyssa. I texted Marcus. Did Alyssa need clothes for a school presentation in February? His answer came 5 minutes later. Not that I remember. Why I circled the charge. Then I found $94 at a cosmetics retailer. There was no possible explanation involving cereal or children's school supplies. I circled that too. Next came $165 at a restaurant downtown. I recognized the name because Vanessa had once posted photographs from there. She and 3 friends had gone out for someone's birthday. I remembered commenting on the picture. You girls look beautiful. Apparently I had helped pay for the beauty. I circled the charge. By March the list grew faster. $78 at a salon. $214 from an online clothing store. $53 at a wine shop. $118 at another restaurant. Then $89 at a spa. I stared at that one. Maybe there was some explanation. Maybe she'd bought a gift card. Maybe I stopped myself. That was exactly how I'd spent months avoiding the truth. Maybe. 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 There comes a point when maybe becomes something we use to protect ourselves from what we already know. I kept going. April, May, June. Some months were relatively small. Others made my stomach tighten. The charges were hidden between legitimate purchases so naturally that I understood why I hadn't noticed. Kroger, Target, Costco, restaurant, Kroger, salon, Target, online boutique, Costco. It wasn't one dramatic spending spree. It was a drip. $50 here, $100 there. Enough to disappear inside a statement unless someone looked carefully. By noon I had nearly 4 pages of notes. I made coffee. I didn't drink it. At 1:30 Marcus called. How bad I don't know yet. That bad I've identified several $1,000s that have nothing to do with groceries or the children. He was silent. Can you send me the merchant names? Why I want to compare them with Vanessa's calendar and our checking account. That sentence told me Marcus had started his own investigation. I emailed him a list. Then I returned to the payments. That was the part that frightened me most. Every month, my credit card balance received a payment, sometimes $150, sometimes $200, once $275. Because the account was mine, I had assumed those payments were coming from my checking account as part of my normal monthly bills. But the more I looked, the less sense it made. Why had I not noticed the balance growing? Because Vanessa's spending and those minimum payments had created the illusion that the account was being managed. I clicked one payment, source account ending in 449. My checking account, another. I whispered, "Oh, Vanessa." Years earlier, before my cataract surgery, I'd been frightened about temporarily losing independence. The doctor told me recovery should be straightforward, but I had asked Vanessa to help with online bills in case I couldn't comfortably read the screen. I had given her access to my checking account, not ownership, not permission to use my money indefinitely, access. After I recovered, I changed some passwords, but apparently not everything connected through saved payment methods. Vanessa had discovered she could make payments on the credit card from my checking account, and she had. I immediately called my bank. This time I didn't hesitate. I changed my online banking password. I removed every device I didn't recognize. I reset security questions. I asked the representative to review authorized access and linked payment permissions. Then I called the credit card company. Remove Vanessa Hayes as an authorized user. The representative confirmed the request. Would you like replacement cards issued? Yes. Would you like the current card numbers closed? Yes. That word felt powerful. Yes. For years, Vanessa had relied on my yes. Yes, I'll pick up the kids. Yes, I'll buy groceries. Yes, I'll stay late. Yes, I'll help. Now my yes belonged to me again. When the calls were finished, I texted Vanessa. The card has been closed. Your authorized user status has been removed. My banking passwords have been changed. The response came almost instantly. You closed it. Yes. Mom. I told you I was fixing this. You haven't. We leave in days. I stared at the message. Even now she was thinking about the cruise. I didn't reply. By late afternoon, Marcus emailed me a spreadsheet. I opened it. He had matched several of the suspicious purchases with things Vanessa had posted online. The restaurant, the salon, a concert, a spa visit, clothing. One charge from a ticketing company corresponded with a concert Vanessa had attended with friends. She had posted a photograph that night with the caption, "Sometimes you have to treat yourself." I sat there looking at those words. Treat yourself, with my card. I added everything I could reasonably identify. The number came to just under $11,000. That included the cruise-related purchases and the other personal spending. Nearly $11,000. I checked the math 3 times. Then I cried. Not loudly. I simply sat at the table while tears ran down my face. I wasn't crying because I couldn't survive the financial loss. I could. I was crying because every transaction represented a moment when my daughter had chosen convenience over honesty. Then my phone rang. Marcus. I found something else, he said. His voice sounded different. What? Those payments from your checking account aren't the only transfers. I straightened. What do you mean there are recurring transfers Vanessa has been making? From where I'm still trying to figure that out. I opened my banking history again. Marcus gave me an amount, $325. Search that. I did. There it was, a transfer. Same amount the previous month, and the month before that. The description was vague enough that I'd never noticed it among utilities and automatic payments. What is it, I asked? I think it's going toward a debt. What debt? That's what I'm trying to find out. I heard papers moving on his end. Then Marcus said something that chilled me. Laverne, I pulled our household credit card statements, and there are accounts I didn't know existed. I didn't answer. I thought we had 3 cards, he continued. How many? At least 6. My hand tightened around the phone. Are they joint? Some aren't. Vanessa's, yes. I looked down at my own statements. The cruise suddenly felt smaller, not less wrong, smaller. Because I was beginning to understand that Vanessa hadn't used my card simply because she wanted a vacation. She might have used it because every other source of money was already exhausted. Marcus, I said carefully, how much debt are we talking about? I was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, he said, I don't know yet. Then he added, but I don't think Vanessa planned to tell either of us. After we hung up, I remained at the table. $11,000 of my money was bad enough. But hidden credit cards meant something else. Vanessa wasn't just spending, she was hiding. And people don't hide one number unless they're afraid someone will discover another. I looked at the recurring $325 transfer again. For the first time since this began, I stopped wondering why Vanessa had taken my money. I started wondering what she had been desperately trying to keep from everyone else. Marcus called me at 8 the next morning. I know what the 325 filers is. I had barely finished pouring my coffee. What a personal loan. I sat down. Vanessa's yes. How much? He hesitated. Originally 12,000. The coffee suddenly tasted bitter. Marcus continued before I could respond. She took it out 14 months ago. I didn't know about it. What did she tell the lender? The money was for debt consolidation. I closed my eyes. That phrase sounded responsible until you asked what happened after the debt was consolidated. Did she actually pay off the cards, some of them? And then she started using them again. There it was. Marcus had spent most of the previous night going through financial records. He had found 6 credit cards, several buy now pay later accounts, and the personal loan. Some accounts had balances small enough to manage. Others didn't. How much total, I asked. I'm still calculating. Marcus. He exhaled. Somewhere above 40,000. I stared at the wall. $40,000. That didn't include their mortgage, didn't include their vehicle loans, didn't include ordinary household expenses. How I've been asking myself the same question. But I already knew part of the answer. Not one dramatic purchase. Hundreds of smaller ones. Clothing, restaurants, concerts, spa appointments, home decorations, weekend trips, things that individually looked affordable until they were stacked together. Marcus came to my house an hour later. This time he brought a laptop and a folder. He looked worse than the day before. I confronted her. What happened? She cried. I waited. She said she was going to tell me. People always seem to be going to tell the truth right after somebody discovers it. Marcus gave a tired laugh. You sound like my mother. Maybe your mother is smart. He opened the laptop. I need to show you something. The screen displayed Vanessa's social media page. I rarely used social media except to see photographs of the grandchildren. Marcus scrolled. There was Vanessa at a rooftop restaurant, Vanessa holding a shopping bag, Vanessa and friends at a concert, Vanessa beside a hotel pool during what I remembered being described as a girls' weekend. The captions were cheerful. Blessed. Making memories. Hard work deserves rewards. One photograph showed Vanessa standing beside 2 friends with champagne glasses. Living our best lives. Marcus pointed toward the screen. Look at the dates. They lined up with several charges on my card. My stomach tightened. Why would she do this? Marcus leaned back. I think I know. He told me about Vanessa's circle of friends. Several were executives. One had married a surgeon. Another owned a successful real estate business with her husband. They traveled. They renovated homes. They drove expensive cars. Vanessa had begun comparing herself to them. She told me once that she felt like we were the poor couple, Marcus said. You aren't poor, I know. And neither is Vanessa. I know. But she's spending like she's trying to prove something. Marcus nodded. That is exactly what she's doing. I remembered my daughter as a teenager. She had always cared about fitting in. If every girl at school had a certain pair of shoes, Vanessa wanted them. If her friends got cars at 16, she complained about borrowing mine. Harold used to tell her, don't go broke trying to look rich. Apparently the lesson hadn't stayed. Where is Vanessa now at home? Does she know you're here? Yes. What does she say about the cruise? Marcus looked down. She still wants to go. I couldn't hide my disbelief. After all this, she says canceling will waste money. Money she didn't have. I said the same thing. Marcus rubbed his forehead. I told her I'm not getting on that ship unless this is addressed. Something in his tone told me that wasn't the only argument they'd had. What else? He hesitated. She had another plan. I waited. Marcus looked directly at me. This is the part you're not going to like. I haven't liked much so far. He turned the laptop toward himself and opened an email. She had been researching debt consolidation options again. That doesn't surprise me. No. But she wasn't planning to use a bank this time. My stomach tightened. Who you? I didn't understand at first. Then I did. She was going to ask me for money. Marcus nodded. How much? 25,000. I actually laughed, not because it was funny, because sometimes the truth becomes so outrageous, your body chooses the wrong reaction. $25,000. She drafted a budget. He showed me. Vanessa had created a spreadsheet labeled Family Reset Plan. Underfunding one line read, Mom loan 25K. I stared at it. Not possible loan. Not ask mom. Mom loan. As if my answer had already been decided. What was she going to tell me? That we had emergency household debt? What emergency? She listed the furnace repair medical expenses, car repair kids expenses. Those weren't $25,000. No. So she was going to lie. Marcus didn't defend her. Yes. I looked again at the spreadsheet. Then something even uglier occurred to me. Would that $25,000 have paid the balance on my own card? Marcus's face answered before his mouth did. Partly. I pushed my chair back. For the first time since this began, I felt genuinely sick. Vanessa had charged expenses to my card, used my checking account to make minimum payments, then planned to borrow money from me to consolidate debts that included the money she already owed me. I would effectively have been paying myself back with my own savings. She was going to make me finance the cover-up. Marcus said nothing. That silence was enough. I stood and walked toward the window. For a long time I watched a neighbor across the street water her flowers. Such an ordinary morning. Cars passing, a dog barking, someone pushing a stroller. Meanwhile, my understanding of my daughter was breaking apart. I failed her somewhere, I whispered. Marcus immediately said no. I kept rescuing her. That doesn't make this your fault. No. But it may explain why she thought I'd do it again. That distinction mattered. Vanessa was responsible for her choices. But I was beginning to see my own pattern too. Every time she had fallen, I had rushed to put a pillow beneath her. Maybe she had stopped believing the ground could hurt. Marcus closed the laptop. I gave her a choice. I turned around. What choice? We don't go on the cruise unless she tells you everything and starts dealing with this honestly. And if she refuses, then I'm not going. I studied him. What about the money already spent? We lose what we lose. That was the first sensible thing anyone had said about the cruise. Money already wasted did not become less wasted by spending more. Marcus stood. I also told her we're taking over the finances together. No more hidden accounts. How did she react? She said I was treating her like a child. And what did you say? That adults don't hide $40,000 in debt. I couldn't argue with that. Before Marcus left, he paused at the doorway. She thinks you're trying to humiliate her. I haven't told anyone anything she didn't force me to explain. I know. I don't want revenge. I know that too. After he left, I sat alone again. My phone buzzed. Vanessa. For a moment, I considered ignoring it. Then I opened the message. Can I come over tonight? I stared at those 6 words. No accusation, no demand, no mention of the cruise. I typed yes. Her reply came quickly. I need to explain. I almost wrote, there's nothing left to explain. But that wasn't true. There was one thing I still needed to understand. How had my daughter gone from borrowing a grocery card to secretly planning a $25,000 rescue before I'd even agreed to help? That evening, Vanessa would finally have to tell me. And for once, I wasn't going to interrupt the consequences to make the confession easier. Vanessa came to my house that evening without Marcus. She looked smaller somehow. No makeup, hair pulled into a loose bun, an old college sweatshirt instead of the polished clothes she usually wore. I opened the door and stepped aside. Coffee number tea. She shook her head. We sat at the dining room table, the same table where I'd spent hours sorting through her purchases. The statements were still inside a folder nearby, but I didn't take them out. Vanessa knew what they said. For almost a minute she stared at her hands. Then she whispered, Marcus told me you know about the loan. Yes. And the cards. Yes. She swallowed. And the 25,000. Yes. Her eyes filled with tears. I wasn't going to steal $25,000 from you. I didn't say you were. I was going to ask. After you'd already written it into your budget. She looked down. That was stupid. No. It was revealing. What does that mean? It means you had already counted my money before hearing my answer. Vanessa wiped her eyes. I thought you'd help. I usually do. That isn't fair. It's exactly fair. I taught you to expect it. She looked surprised. I continued. Every time you had a problem, I tried to solve it. That doesn't excuse what you did, but I'm beginning to understand how we got here. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Vanessa said, I don't know how to fix this. You start by accepting that you may not be able to fix it without losing something. Her face tightened. The cruise, maybe. We'll lose thousands if we cancel. You've already lost thousands. She shook her head. If we go, at least we get something for it. With what spending money? She didn't answer. What happens when you get home? Still nothing. Another card? No. Another loan? No. Mine. Mom, stop. I will when you stop pretending the vacation is separate from the problem. Vanessa stood. I knew this was a mistake. What was coming here? She grabbed her purse. I didn't stop her. At the door, she turned around. You really won't watch the kids not under the arrangement you made for me. So that's it. That's it. She left. The next morning, Marcus called. She still wants to go. I know. I told her I'm not going. I looked at the clock. Their flight to Florida was scheduled in 3 days. Are you sure? Yes. What about the cancellation? We'll recover some of it. Not all. Vanessa knows she knows. He sounded exhausted. She spent half the night looking for alternatives for the kids. That didn't surprise me. Vanessa had always been resourceful when she wanted something. She called babysitting services, she asked friends, she contacted another relative. But 8 days of overnight childcare for 2 children, transportation, meals, activities, and a dog wasn't cheap. By that evening, she had discovered something my refrigerator rate sheet had already told her. My labor had value. A professional nanny quoted more than I had. Another sitter couldn't handle school transportation. A relative could manage 2 nights, but not 8. The next afternoon, Vanessa called me. I found someone for the kids. Okay. There was a pause. You don't care, I care that they're safe. You know what I mean? Yes. She waited for me to offer something. I didn't. Finally, she said, it doesn't matter anyway. Marcus won't go. That's between you and Marcus. He says he won't take a vacation paid for with your money. That sounds reasonable. He's acting like I'm some terrible person. I think he's acting like someone who just learned his wife hid $40,000 of debt. She hung up. The cruise left on Saturday, without them. I knew because Vanessa posted nothing online that morning. That sounds silly, but for years she had documented everything. Airport coffee, hotel rooms, new shoes, family dinners. A Caribbean cruise would have produced photographs before breakfast. Instead, silence. At 11, Marcus texted me. We canceled. I replied, I'm sorry it came to this. And I meant it. I didn't feel victorious. I imagined the ship leaving Florida, while Vanessa sat in Columbus, knowing the balcony cabin she'd dreamed about was empty. Consequences don't always feel good when they happen to someone you love. Sometimes they hurt everybody. That evening, Marcus asked if I would come over. Not to babysit, to talk. When I arrived, Alyssa and Ethan were upstairs. Vanessa was in the kitchen. The cruise schedule was gone from the refrigerator. My sitting rates sheet was still there. Wrinkled now. One corner had torn where Vanessa had pulled it down. She saw me looking. I didn't leave that there as a joke. I know. Marcus sat at the table. We need to decide how we're handling the money. Vanessa crossed her arms. There it is. What the money? Marcus sighed. Vanessa, this entire problem is about money you hid. No, it's about everybody deciding I'm a liar and a thief. You lied. I made mistakes. You told me Laverne bought us a cruise. I panicked. You used her checking account. I was making payments with her money. Vanessa turned toward me. And you? You posted my business to the whole family. You posted first. You humiliated me. You told half the story because you wanted them to shame me into giving you what you wanted. Her eyes flashed. You always have to be right. No. My voice stayed quiet. I spent years letting you believe you were right because disagreeing with you was exhausting. That silenced her. Marcus stood. We're not doing this in front of the kids. Too late. A small voice came from the hallway, doing what we all turned. Alyssa stood near the kitchen entrance. She was wearing pajamas and holding her phone. Vanessa said quickly, "Go upstairs. Why are you yelling we're not?" "You are." Ethan appeared behind her. Marcus walked toward them. "Come on, let's go upstairs." But Alyssa didn't move. She looked at the refrigerator, then at my rate sheet, then at her mother. "I heard you talking before." Vanessa went pale. "What did you hear?" Alyssa looked at me. "Grandma, are you mad because Mom used your card?" Nobody answered. Vanessa stepped toward her. "Honey, this is grown-up stuff. Did you, Alyssa? Did you use Grandma's money?" Vanessa looked at Marcus, then at me. She seemed to be searching for someone to rescue her. Nobody did. Finally, she said I borrowed some money without asking first. Alyssa frowned. "My teacher says borrowing means someone lets you take it." The room became painfully quiet. Vanessa's face crumpled. "Alyssa, please." The girl looked at her mother with an expression I will never forget. Not anger, confusion. "Mom, did you steal Grandma's money?" Vanessa covered her mouth. Marcus closed his eyes. Ethan looked from one adult to another, too young to understand why the room had suddenly changed. And I felt no satisfaction at all. I wished I could pull the words back into Alyssa's mouth. I wished she hadn't heard any of it. But the question remained. Vanessa started crying. Not the angry tears I'd seen before. These were different. She crouched in front of her daughter. "I did something wrong," she said. Alyssa's eyes filled too. "Why?" Vanessa couldn't answer. Marcus took the children upstairs. I remained in the kitchen. Vanessa sat down and cried into her hands. For once, I didn't rush toward her. I didn't tell her everything would be fine. I didn't solve anything. After several minutes, she whispered, "My own daughter thinks I'm a thief." I sat across from her. She asked a question. Vanessa looked at me. "What do you want from me?" That was the question I'd been waiting for. And suddenly I knew the answer wasn't revenge. I didn't want Vanessa publicly humiliated. I didn't want my grandchildren ashamed of their mother. I didn't even want the ruined cruise to become something I celebrated. I wanted my daughter back. But not the version of her who believed love meant unlimited access to my wallet, my time, and my forgiveness. "I want you to change," I said. She stared at me through tears. "And if you really want to fix this, Vanessa paying back the money is only the beginning." After Vanessa left that night, I sat alone in my living room with every light off, except the lamp beside Harold's chair. I still called it Harold's chair. 6 years after his death, nobody else sat there unless every other seat was taken. On the bookshelf beside it stood a photograph from our 35th wedding anniversary. Harold had one arm around my waist, and I was laughing at something he'd whispered just before the picture was taken. I picked up the frame. "What did I do wrong?" I whispered. The house naturally gave me no answer, but memory did. I remembered Vanessa at 23 calling because her checking account was overdrawn. I transferred money. At 26, she couldn't make rent after an unexpected car repair. I covered it. When she and Marcus bought their first house, they were short on closing costs. Harold and I helped. After Alyssa was born, Vanessa wanted to return to work, but couldn't afford full-time childcare. I stepped in 2 days a week. When Ethan came along, 2 days became 3. Every rescue had seemed reasonable by itself. Every time I had told myself the same thing. That's what mothers do. But sitting there in the dark, I finally asked a question I'd avoided for years. What had Vanessa learned from all that help? Had she learned that family supports one another? Or had she learned that if she got herself deep enough into trouble, her mother would eventually absorb the consequences? The next morning, I called Denise. My sister listened while I told her everything. When I finished, she said, "You know what you're going to do, no?" "Yes, you do." I smiled despite myself. "Then tell me. You're going to save Vanessa again." "I am not." "Maybe not with money." I didn't answer. Denise continued, "You'll find some other way to make the consequences softer." That irritated me because it was true. "So what am I supposed to do, call the police on my own daughter?" I didn't say that. She used my account. I know. She accessed my checking. I know. I could report it. You could. The idea made my stomach turn. I wasn't interested in revenge. I didn't want Vanessa arrested. I didn't want Alyssa and Ethan watching their mother face criminal charges if another path could force accountability. But I also couldn't pretend nothing serious had happened. I want the money back, I said. Then make her pay it back. And if she doesn't, then you decide what you're willing to do. That afternoon, I began writing conditions. Not punishments. Conditions. First, Vanessa would acknowledge in writing the amount she owed me. Second, we would create a monthly repayment schedule. Third, she would attend financial counseling. Fourth, she would have no access to any of my accounts. Ever. Fifth, there would be no more assumption of free childcare. I would still see my grandchildren. I would still help when I chose. But Vanessa would ask. And I would be allowed to say no without being punished emotionally for it. I printed the document. 2 days later, Vanessa and Marcus came over. Marcus sat beside her. Vanessa looked exhausted. I placed the paper between us. "What's this?" she asked. "My proposal." She read the first paragraph. Her expression hardened. "You want me to sign a contract? I want you to sign a repayment agreement. I'm your daughter." "Yes." "You seriously need this on paper?" "Yes." She looked at Marcus. He didn't rescue her. Vanessa continued reading. "Financial counseling." "Yes. This is humiliating. $40,000 of hidden debt is a financial emergency. My debt to you isn't 40,000. No. But the behavior that created both problems is the same." She pushed the paper away. "I can't believe this. I stayed quiet. You said you didn't want revenge. This isn't revenge. It feels like it. Consequences often do." Her eyes flashed. "That haven't you?" "No. You think you're teaching me some big lesson. I think you're 39 years old and need to take responsibility for your own decisions." Vanessa stood. "I said I'd pay you back. And I've given you a way to do that. I don't need a signed agreement." "I do. You don't trust me." That one hurt. I looked directly at her. "No, Vanessa. Right now, I don't." The anger disappeared from her face. I wished I could take the words back, but they were true. She sat slowly. Marcus reached toward her hand. She pulled it away. "You're my mother," she whispered, "and you're my daughter. Then how can you say you don't trust me because loving you and trusting you are not the same thing?" Tears filled her eyes. I continued gently. "I love you completely. But you lied to me. You lied to Marcus. You used my card after knowing I would say no. You made payments with my checking account. You planned to ask me for $25,000 without telling me the truth about why." She looked down. "I can't pretend trust survived all of that untouched." Vanessa cried quietly. I wanted to move around the table and hold her. Every instinct told me to. Instead, I remained where I was. Sometimes love means comfort. Sometimes love means refusing to interrupt unnecessary pain. After several minutes, she wiped her face. "What happens if I don't sign?" "That depends on you. What does that mean?" "I haven't reported the unauthorized use of my accounts. I'm giving you an opportunity to repay what you owe and address the behavior that caused this." Her head snapped up. "Are you threatening me with the police?" "No." "It sounds like it. I'm telling you I cannot leave this unresolved." Marcus finally spoke. "Vanessa, sign it." She turned on him. "Stay out of this." "I can't. Your debt affects our family. You think you're perfect now?" "No." His voice remained calm. "I should have paid more attention. I should have known what was happening in our finances. That's my responsibility." Vanessa stared at him. Then she looked back at the agreement. But she didn't sign. She stood. "I need time. How much I don't know." She picked up her purse. Marcus remained seated. "Vanessa, I'm going home." She walked out. Marcus started to follow. I stopped him. "Let her go." He looked worried. "What if she refuses, then she refuses?" That sentence was difficult to say. Because the old Laverne would have chased her. The old Laverne would have lowered the monthly payment removed. The counseling requirement softened the agreement until Vanessa could accept it without discomfort. I wasn't doing that anymore. For the next 4 days, Vanessa didn't call. She didn't text. I didn't see the children. That was the hardest part. Every afternoon around 3, I found myself looking at the clock, imagining Alyssa getting out of school. I wondered whether Ethan had soccer practice. I almost called. Twice. Both times I stopped. Boundaries become meaningless if loneliness can erase them. On the 5th morning, I opened my front door to pick up the newspaper. There was an envelope on the porch. No stamp. My name was written across the front in Vanessa's handwriting. Inside was a folded piece of paper. And something heavy. I tipped the envelope. A gold bracelet slid into my palm. I knew it immediately. Harold had given it to Vanessa when she graduated from college. He had saved for months to buy it. I unfolded the note. There were only 8 words. Sell this toward what I owe you. I'm sorry. I sat down on the front step. The bracelet rested in my palm, warm from the morning sun. For the first time since this began, Vanessa had offered something without an excuse attached. No but. No, you have savings. No, I was going to pay you back. Just, I'm sorry. I closed my fingers around the bracelet. I wasn't going to sell it. But Vanessa didn't know that yet. And as I sat there holding one of the last gifts her father had ever given her, I realized something had finally changed. My daughter was beginning to understand that fixing what she had broken would require giving something up. The money was only the first thing. I kept Vanessa's bracelet in my dresser drawer for 3 days. Every morning I opened the drawer and looked at it. Harold had given it to her the afternoon she graduated from Ohio State. I could still remember him standing in our kitchen with the little jewelry box hidden behind his back. He had been more excited than she was. Our daughter had become the first person in his immediate family to finish college. That bracelet wasn't just gold. It carried a piece of her father. Selling it would have paid only a fraction of what Vanessa owed me, and I knew Harold would have hated the idea. So I never called a jeweler. I waited. On the 3rd evening, my doorbell rang. Vanessa stood on the porch. No purse. No defensive expression. Just my daughter. Can I come in? Yes. We went to the kitchen. I put water on for tea without asking. This time she accepted. For a while, Vanessa watched me move around the kitchen. Finally, she asked, "Did you sell it?" No. Her shoulders dropped. Why not? Because your father didn't give you that bracelet, so it could pay a credit card bill. Her eyes immediately filled. I don't deserve it. That's not for me to decide. I used your money. Yes. I lied. Yes. To Marcus too. Yes. She looked down at her tea. And then I made you look cruel to the family because I thought if enough people agreed with me, you'd give in. I didn't answer. Vanessa gave a broken little laugh. Saying it out loud makes it sound even worse. Sometimes that's useful. She nodded. Then she said something I hadn't heard from her since the confrontation began. I'm sorry, Mom. No explanation followed. No but. No promise that everything would somehow be fixed immediately. Just an apology. I let the silence remain for a few seconds. Thank you. She looked surprised. That's it. What else do you want me to say? I don't know. I thought you'd tell me it's okay. It isn't okay. She lowered her eyes. But that doesn't mean I don't love you. Vanessa started crying. This time I reached across the table and took her hand. There is a difference between comforting someone and rescuing them. I was finally learning it. She squeezed my fingers. I don't even know when it started. The spending, the lying. I waited. She stared toward the window. I think it started when everyone around me seemed to be doing better. She told me about her friends. One had remodeled a kitchen that looked like something from a magazine. Another had gone to Italy. Another bought a luxury SUV. Every lunch conversation seemed to involve vacations, promotions, private schools, home renovations. I knew it was stupid, Vanessa said, but I started feeling embarrassed. Embarrassed about what our life. That hurt. You have a good life. I know that now. You have a husband who works hard, healthy children, a beautiful home, I know. So what were you ashamed of? that it didn't look impressive. There was the truth, not poverty, appearance. Vanessa had begun using credit to close the distance between the life she had and the life she wanted people to believe she had. At first, she told herself she'd catch up next month. Then next month became another balance. When Marcus asked about money, she minimized things. When bills became difficult, she opened another card. Then the personal loan. Then my grocery card. Why mine, I asked. Her face tightened. Because it still had room. I appreciated the honesty even though it hurt. And because I thought you'd forgive me. That hurt more. She continued quickly. I don't mean I thought you were stupid. I thought, you're my mom. You've always helped. So you assumed forgiveness in advance. Yes, that's dangerous. I know. I leaned back. Forgiveness is something I can give you after you've hurt me. It isn't permission to hurt me because you expect to receive it later. Vanessa covered her face. I know. We sat quietly. Then she told me about the cruise. Her friends had been discussing vacations at lunch. One woman had just returned from Aruba. Another was planning Hawaii. Vanessa had already told them she and Marcus were doing something big for their anniversary. She hadn't even booked anything yet. But once she'd said it, pride took over. She found the cruise, saw the price, knew their cards couldn't handle it. Then she remembered mine. The first time I entered the card number, she whispered, I almost closed the page. But you didn't. No. Why? Because I told myself you'd understand later. And the 25,000? She looked ashamed. That came after. Her plan had been exactly what Marcus discovered. Ask me for a consolidation loan. Tell me they had accumulated debt from household emergencies. Use the money to clean up enough accounts that Marcus wouldn't see how bad things had become. And some of that money would have paid my card, yes. So I would have paid myself back. When you say it like that, how else can I say it? She shook her head. You can't. For the first time, Vanessa wasn't fighting the truth. I went to my desk and returned with the repayment agreement. I placed it on the table. She stared at it. I still don't like this. You don't have to. She almost smiled. Dad used to say that. Yes, he did. She picked up the pages. What if I can't make one of the payments? You call me before it's due. And if something happens, we discuss it. You're not trying to destroy me. No, Vanessa. I softened my voice. I'm trying to stop helping you destroy yourself. Her eyes filled again. She read the agreement slowly. Then she reached the signature line. But before signing, she looked at me. I'll do the financial counseling too. Good. Marcus wants us to go together. Even better. She signed. I signed beneath her. The sound of the pen moving across that paper wasn't dramatic. But something important happened in that moment. For the first time since I'd found the cruise charge, Vanessa wasn't promising. She was committing. I put the agreement aside. Then I opened my banking folder. What are you doing? You said you wanted to fix this. I do. Then I need to know all of it. She looked nervous. All of what? Every card, every loan, every balance, every automatic payment. Mom, no more partial truth. She stared at me. I continued. If I'm going to help you understand how to budget, I'm not working with secrets. She hesitated, then nodded. Okay. Marcus needs to be there. He will. No more borrowing from me. I understand. No emergency credit card. She nodded. No hiding a bill because you're ashamed. Another nod. And Vanessa, what my card stays closed. For the first time that evening, she gave me a small, genuine smile. I figured. And the free on-demand babysitting is over. Her smile disappeared, then slowly returned. I figured that too. I reached across the table. I will always love spending time with Alyssa and Ethan. But from now on, you ask. I will. And I can say no. She swallowed. Yes. I squeezed her hand. I can forgive you. She began crying again. Then I finished the sentence. But forgiveness doesn't reopen the card. Vanessa laughed through her tears. Okay, Mom. When she left that night, I stood at the door and watched her drive away. I didn't feel as though everything had been repaired. It hadn't. Trust doesn't grow back because someone signs a document. But for the first time, I could see the beginning of something better than the relationship we'd had before. Not a mother rescuing a daughter. Two adult women learning how to love each other without using love as an excuse to avoid responsibility. The following Saturday, Vanessa and Marcus arrived carrying a laptop, 3 folders, and a cardboard box filled with statements. Vanessa placed everything on my dining room table. This is all of it. I looked at the box. All. She took a deep breath. Every number. I pulled out a chair. Then let's start. Because apologies had opened the door. Now accountability had to walk through it. The cardboard box Vanessa placed on my dining room table contained more truth than she'd given Marcus or me in years. Credit card statements, loan documents, buy now pay later accounts, store cards, subscription bills, a folder of unopened mail. I looked at the box, then at my daughter. Nothing else. Vanessa shook her head. Nothing. Marcus sat beside her. If we find another account later, you won't. He held her gaze. Vanessa swallowed. I swear. I pulled out my calculator. Then let's see where you actually stand. For the next 3 hours, we put every number on paper. The total was ugly. Just over $42,000 in unsecured debt. That didn't include their mortgage or vehicle loans. One credit card carried an interest rate so high, I asked Vanessa to read it twice. Another had been used mostly for clothing and restaurants. The personal loan still had thousands outstanding. Then there were smaller balances scattered across several payment services. Those bothered me almost more than the large accounts. $28 here, $46 there, $72 next month. They made expensive purchases feel harmless by chopping them into pieces. Marcus stared at the final number, 42,000. Vanessa looked down. I know. No, he said quietly. I don't think I knew until I saw it written like that. Neither had I. Numbers become real when they're all in one place. I drew a line beneath the total. Now income. Marcus gave me their monthly take-home pay. Vanessa gave me hers. Then we listed required expenses: mortgage, utilities, insurance, car payments, groceries, fuel, children's expenses, debt minimums. When we reached subscriptions, I stopped. How many streaming services do you need? Vanessa almost smiled. Apparently 7. You apparently need fewer. Marcus laughed for the first time that afternoon. We cut 4. Then gym memberships. Vanessa had one. Marcus had another. There was also a boutique fitness membership Vanessa hadn't used in months. Cancelled. A monthly beauty subscription. Cancelled. 2 premium shopping memberships. 1 cancelled. Then restaurants. I looked at their average. You spend this much eating out. Marcus frowned. I didn't know we did, Vanessa said quietly. Mostly me. No excuse, just ownership. That mattered. We moved to vehicles. Marcus's SUV was necessary for his work travel. Vanessa's newer vehicle had a payment that made my eyebrows rise. You owe how much, she told me. And what's it worth? Marcus had already checked. Less than the balance. They couldn't simply sell it without dealing with the difference. But they could explore trading down once the numbers made sense. We're going to look at options, Marcus said. Vanessa nodded. Then she opened another folder. I have things I can sell. Inside were photographs she'd printed from online listings she had already prepared. Designer handbags, shoes, electronics, a barely used exercise bike, jewelry she had purchased herself. I looked at her. You did this? Last night. One handbag had cost more than my first month's salary when I started working. I didn't say that. Vanessa already looked ashamed enough. This isn't about punishing yourself, I told her. It feels like it. It's about turning things you don't need into money you do. She nodded. Marcus added, We're also stopping vacations for now. Vanessa gave him a look. He raised both hands. I said for now. To my surprise, she smiled. Fine. That small exchange gave me hope. They were beginning to act like partners instead of detective and suspect. Then we reached my repayment agreement. The amount Vanessa owed me was just under $11,000. I had separated legitimate grocery and children's expenses from personal charges. I don't expect you to repay groceries I agreed to cover, I said. Vanessa shook her head. Some of those groceries weren't yours either. What do you mean there were times I bought household things for us? Then identify them. I don't remember everything. Estimate honestly. She looked uncomfortable. I should pay all of it. No. Mom. No. Accountability doesn't mean inventing punishment. You repay what you took without permission. We agreed on a monthly amount. Not so high that it would force them to borrow again. Not so low that repayment became symbolic. Vanessa signed the revised schedule. Marcus looked at me. You really were good at payroll. I told you. Vanessa laughed softly. Dad used to complain Mom could find a 12-cent discrepancy. Your father was usually the 12-cent discrepancy. For a moment, all three of us laughed. It felt strange. Good strange. Then Marcus became serious. I need to say something. Vanessa looked at him. I've spent a lot of time being angry with you. She stiffened. But I helped create this situation too. No, you didn't. I didn't open the cards. I didn't lie. That's yours. Vanessa looked down. But I stopped paying attention because it was easier. He admitted that whenever Vanessa raised concerns about money, he often told her to handle it because he hated budgeting. He traveled. He earned his paycheck. Then he assumed the household finances would somehow work. I made you responsible for everything he said. Then I didn't ask questions as long as the lights stayed on. Vanessa's eyes filled. That doesn't excuse what I did. No. Marcus reached for her hand. But we're not fixing this if I pretend my only role is being the husband who got lied to. I watched them. That was accountability. Not sharing blame where it didn't belong. Sharing responsibility for what came next. The following week, they attended their first appointment with a nonprofit financial counselor. I didn't go. That was important. This was their marriage, their debt, their work. Vanessa called afterward. It was awful. I smiled. Useful awful or useless awful useful. Good. The counselor helped them prioritize high-interest balances, build an emergency fund, and create automatic payments they could actually afford. For once, Vanessa wasn't looking for a magical solution. No secret loan, no new card, no mother with savings, just arithmetic and patience. The first repayment to me arrived the following month. I saw the deposit in my account, $450. A minute later, Vanessa texted, "Payment 1." I replied, "Received. Thank you." Nothing more. She didn't need applause for paying a debt. But privately, I smiled. 3 months passed, then 4. The payments arrived on time. Their social life changed. Fewer restaurants, no expensive weekend trips. Vanessa sold several luxury items. Marcus picked up additional commission opportunities. And something unexpected happened. They didn't become miserable. One Sunday, I went to their house for dinner. Marcus was grilling hamburgers. The children were running through sprinklers in the backyard. Vanessa handed me lemonade. We spent $28 on dinner tonight. Should I inspect the receipt? She laughed. Probably. Then she became serious. I used to think having less money to spend would make me feel trapped. And I feel less trapped than I did when I was hiding everything. That stayed with me. Debt hadn't only taken their money, secrets had taken their peace. Before I left, Vanessa handed me a small envelope. What is this next month's payment? It's early. I sold the exercise bike. I opened the envelope. It was more than the scheduled amount. You don't have to pay ahead. I know. She smiled. I want to. Driving home, I realized I hadn't given Vanessa a single dollar during those months. Not one. I had given her spreadsheets, questions, 30 years of budgeting habits, and occasionally an uncomfortable truth. That was all. For most of my life, I had believed helping someone meant making their burden lighter. Now I understood another kind of help. Sometimes you stand beside someone while they carry their own burden. You don't take it away. You simply remind them they are strong enough to carry it. A week later, Vanessa called me during breakfast. Her voice sounded hesitant. "Mom, I need to ask you something." My old instincts immediately prepared for an emergency. Instead, she said, "I have a work conference next Thursday." I waited. Marcus will be out of town. Another pause. Then Vanessa asked a question that sounded ordinary, but meant more to me than she could possibly know. "Would you be willing to help with the kids?" Not you're available, right? Not I'll leave the schedule on the fridge. Would you be willing? Then she added, and if you can't, that's okay. I sat there holding my coffee. For the first time in years, my daughter had asked for my time, as though it actually belonged to me. I didn't answer Vanessa immediately, not because I wanted to make her nervous. I simply wanted to appreciate what she had just done. Would you be willing to help with the kids? It was such a small question, but for years Vanessa had rarely asked it that way. She had told me when she needed me. She had sent schedules. She had assumed availability. Now she had acknowledged something basic that we had both forgotten. My time belonged to me. What time is the conference? I asked. I need to leave around 7 Thursday morning. I should be back by 8 that night. And Marcus Cincinnati. He won't be home until Friday. What about school? I can get them ready before I leave. I thought maybe you could do drop-off and pick-up, but if that's too much, I'll arrange something else. Something else. Another phrase that mattered. There was finally a plan B that wasn't simply grandma. I'll do it. Are you sure? Yes. A pause. Then she said, okay, thank you. You're welcome. And Mom. Yes. How much I smiled. How much what I know what you're doing. I haven't done anything. The rates. I laughed. You still have that sheet? There was a pause. Maybe. I shook my head. No charge. Seriously, seriously. But I thought the whole point was, the point wasn't that I'm becoming a professional babysitter. Then what was it? You'll understand Thursday. When I arrived at Vanessa's house that morning, she was already dressed for the conference. Alyssa was eating toast. Ethan was searching for homework he insisted had vanished overnight. Some things hadn't changed. Grandma Ethan hugged me. I kissed his forehead. Vanessa handed me a single sheet of paper. I raised an eyebrow. Another schedule. Her face went red. No emergency contacts and pickup times. I looked at it. There were no instructions about laundry, no grocery list, no dog walking commands. At the bottom, Vanessa had written, "Thank you, Mom." I folded the paper. Much better. She smiled nervously. I've learned. Before leaving, Vanessa opened her purse and put $40 on the counter. What's that? Lunch, groceries, whatever you need. You have food. I know. Then take your money. No. Vanessa. Mom. We stared at each other. Then she smiled. I'm leaving it. I let her. Not because I needed $40, because she needed to leave it. That day with Alyssa and Ethan reminded me of something the conflict had nearly buried. I loved being their grandmother. I loved hearing Ethan explain soccer as if I had never seen a ball before. I loved Alyssa telling me school gossip while pretending she wasn't gossiping. I loved making grilled cheese sandwiches cut diagonally because Ethan claimed they tasted better that way. None of that had ever been the problem. The problem was obligation. Love feels different when it's chosen. After school, Alyssa sat beside me at the kitchen island doing homework. After several quiet minutes, she asked Grandma, "Yes, are you and Mom okay? Children always know more than adults hope they do. We're getting there." She said she did something bad. I put down the dish towel. "Your mom made some serious mistakes. Is she still in trouble?" I smiled slightly. Adults don't exactly get grounded. I know. But adults do have consequences. Alyssa thought about that. Like losing the cruise? Yes. And paying money back, yes. She nodded. Then she said, "Mom doesn't buy stuff anymore." I tried not to laugh. She still buys things. Not fun things. That may be temporary. Alyssa returned to her homework. Then she said quietly, "She seems happier." That surprised me. Does she? Yeah. How she doesn't yell at Dad about bills anymore. I looked at my granddaughter. Sometimes children notice the result before adults recognize the change. By 7:30, both children had eaten, homework was finished, and Ethan had somehow gotten spaghetti sauce on a shirt he wasn't even wearing during dinner. Vanessa came home shortly after 8. She looked tired but pleased. "How'd it go?" I asked. "Good. Really good." She looked around. "You did the dishes. I was standing beside the sink. You didn't have to." "I know. That was the difference. I knew. Vanessa knew. I had chosen." She opened the refrigerator to put away a bottle of water. Then I saw it. My old rate sheet. It was tucked beneath a magnet near the side. Wrinkled. One corner torn. I walked over. "You really kept this?" Vanessa laughed. "I couldn't throw it away." "Why?" "At first because I was mad. And now," she looked at the sheet. "Because you were right. I removed it from the refrigerator. Grandma's sitting rates, $22 per hour, $75 overnight, $15 meals, $25 dog care." The paper seemed ridiculous now. "And important." Vanessa pointed to it. "You know, I actually called a nanny service after you refused the cruise week. I know, they wanted more than you charged." I laughed. Then my pricing was competitive. Vanessa laughed too. For a moment we stood there like we used to before money became something sharp between us. Then she grew serious. "I thought you were trying to punish me." "I know, but you weren't." "No. What were you trying to do?" I looked at the old rate sheet. "I was trying to make you see something. What that free doesn't mean worthless." Vanessa's expression changed. I continued. "I never wanted $22 an hour to love my grandchildren. I wanted you to understand that when someone gives you their time freely, it doesn't mean their time has no value." She looked down. "I treated you like you were always available." "Yes. I didn't even ask. Usually not. I thought because you loved them you'd want to do it. I usually did. That makes it worse." "Not necessarily. It does to me." I touched her arm. "Then learn from it. Don't punish yourself forever." She nodded. I removed the magnet and folded the rate sheet. "Are you finally throwing it away? I think its work here is done." Vanessa took it from me. "No." "What? Give it to me." I handed it over. She folded it carefully and placed it inside a kitchen drawer. "Why are you keeping it?" She smiled. "Maybe I need the reminder." Before I left, Vanessa picked up the $40 from the counter. "You didn't use any of it." "I told you there was food." She held it toward me. "Take it anyway." "No. For gas." "No. Mom." I laughed. "Put it toward your debt." She smiled. "Fine." Then something happened that would have seemed insignificant to anyone else. Vanessa opened her phone. She transferred $40 toward the next repayment. Right there. No excuses, no delay, no pretending. Done. I hugged her. As I walked toward the door, she said, "Mom, yes, thank you for today." "You're welcome, and thank you for saying yes." I looked back at her. "Thank you for asking." Driving home, I realized how much our relationship had changed without either of us noticing. I was still helping, still babysitting, still making grilled cheese and finding lost homework. But I wasn't doing it because guilt demanded it. Vanessa wasn't accepting it because entitlement expected it. The love hadn't disappeared when I built boundaries around it. If anything, the love had become cleaner, freer. For years I had worried that saying no would make my family need me less. What I hadn't understood was that being needed wasn't the same as being valued. Now Vanessa was learning the difference. So was I. And there was only one thing left between us. The balance she still owed me. Month after month it kept getting smaller. Until almost 1 year after the cruise that never happened, Vanessa called and asked me to come over for coffee. She wouldn't tell me why. But when I arrived, there was an envelope waiting on the kitchen table. Beside it sat something I hadn't seen in months. My old grandma's sitting rates sheet. Only this time it wasn't held to the refrigerator with a magnet. It was inside a frame. Almost 1 year after the cruise that never happened, I walked into Vanessa's kitchen and stopped beside the table. There were 3 things waiting for me: 2 cups of coffee, a white envelope, and my old grandma's sitting rates sheet inside a simple black frame. I picked up the frame first. The paper still had the torn corner from the morning Vanessa had ripped it off the refrigerator. "You framed this," Vanessa smiled. "I did. Why would you preserve one of the worst arguments we've ever had?" Look at the bottom. Beneath the original rate sheet, she had added a small printed sentence. "The most expensive things are the ones we take for granted." I read it twice. Then I looked at my daughter. "That yours, yes. Not bad. High praise from a retired payroll specialist." I laughed. Then my eyes filled with tears. Vanessa came around the table and hugged me. For a moment, neither of us said anything. A year earlier, that kitchen had been filled with accusation. Now it smelled like coffee and cinnamon toast. Life rarely repairs itself with one dramatic moment. Most healing happens quietly. One payment, one apology, one changed habit, one honest conversation at a time. Vanessa returned to her chair and pushed the envelope toward me. Open it. Inside was a check. I looked at the amount, then at her. This is the rest, the last payment. I didn't say anything immediately. Vanessa had paid me every month, sometimes exactly what we'd agreed, sometimes more. She and Marcus had sold unnecessary things, reduced their spending, and worked through their financial plan. The $42,000 of household debt wasn't completely gone yet, but it was dramatically lower. More importantly, there were no hidden accounts anymore. No secret cards. No bills stuffed into drawers. Marcus and Vanessa reviewed their finances together every Sunday evening. Vanessa once joked that their marriage now included a weekly date with a spreadsheet. "You're sure you can afford this?" I asked. "Yes. No other bills are being skipped. No. No card paid this." She rolled her eyes. "Mom, I have to ask." "I know," she smiled. "This came from my checking account. Money I earned. Everything else is current." I looked at the check again. For months I'd imagined how I'd feel when the debt was finally repaid. I thought I might feel relief. Maybe satisfaction. Instead, I felt something quieter. Closure. "Thank you," I said. Vanessa nodded. "Thank you for making me pay it." I raised an eyebrow. "Don't get sentimental. I can add interest." She laughed, then her expression softened. "I mean it." I folded the check back into the envelope. "I know." Vanessa looked toward the framed rate sheet. "I hated you for that thing for about 2 weeks. Only 2. Okay. Maybe 3. I can live with that. I thought you were humiliating me." "I know. But now I think it was the first time anyone made me see what I was doing." She wrapped both hands around her coffee. "I thought because something was freely given it didn't cost anything." I understood exactly what she meant. My childcare, my groceries, my time, my patience, even my forgiveness. Vanessa had treated them like renewable resources, and if I was being fair, I had helped teach her to. "I should have set boundaries sooner," I said. She shook her head. "That doesn't make what I did your fault." "No." I appreciated that she understood the difference now. "But I spent years rescuing you from discomfort." She smiled slightly. "You were very good at it. Too good. Dad, too." At the mention of Harold, I remembered something. "Wait here. Where are you going to my car?" I had brought a small jewelry box with me. I'd kept it hidden in my purse for months, waiting for the right moment. When I returned, Vanessa stared at the box. Her expression changed before I even opened it. "Mom." I placed it in front of her. "No." "Yes." She lifted the lid. Inside was the gold bracelet Harold had given her at her college graduation. Vanessa covered her mouth. "You kept it?" "Of course I kept it. You told me you hadn't sold it, but I thought eventually I was never selling that bracelet." She touched the gold gently. "I gave it to you. You offered it toward your debt. Then it's yours." "No." I pushed the box toward her. "The debt was financial. You paid it financially." Her eyes filled. "But I don't deserve this. Your father didn't give it to you because you were perfect." She looked at me. "He gave it to you because you were his daughter and because he was proud of you." Vanessa began crying. I continued. "You made terrible choices. You hurt people who loved you. But you faced what you did." She shook her head. "It took me too long." "Maybe." I reached across the table. "But you changed." She looked at the bracelet. "Money paid your debt to me," I said. "Changing how you live rebuilt my trust." That was when she broke down. She came around the table and wrapped both arms around me. I held her. This time there was nothing left to rescue, only forgiveness. That evening, Marcus came home early with Alyssa and Ethan. Ethan had grown enough that when he hugged me, his head nearly reached my shoulder. Alyssa was 12 now and increasingly convinced she knew everything. "Grandma," Ethan said, "Mom and Dad are going to dinner." Vanessa immediately stepped in. We haven't asked Grandma yet. That made me smile. She turned to me. Marcus made reservations for tonight. Would you like to stay with the kids for a few hours? I pretended to consider it. Vanessa pointed toward the framed rate sheet. Don't even think about it. I laughed. How long? 3 hours. 4 maximum. And you're asking yes. Then yes. Ethan cheered. Alyssa asked whether we could make brownies. Marcus smiled. Thank you, Laverne. After Vanessa and Marcus left, I stood in the kitchen with my grandchildren. There was no printed schedule, no list of obligations, no expectation. I was there because I wanted to be. Later, while the brownies baked, I noticed the framed rate sheet hanging beside the refrigerator. I read Vanessa's sentence again. The most expensive things are the ones we take for granted. She was right. Trust, time, family, peace. None of them arrive with price tags. That doesn't make them free. A year earlier, I'd thought the problem was a $4,860 cruise charge. It wasn't. The real problem was that somewhere along the way, my daughter had started believing that loving her meant never saying no. And I had started believing the same thing. We were both wrong. Boundaries hadn't destroyed our relationship. They had saved it. Not because Vanessa finally learned what my money was worth. Because we both finally learned what my love was worth. And love, when it's healthy, doesn't require one person to disappear so another person can remain comfortable.